conservative value of opportunity. And of course, education is key to giving people the best chance to make the most of their talents and for Britain to be the best place to grow up. And that's why one of my priorities since being elected has been visiting schools across my constituency to hear directly from teachers, from teaching assistants and pupils about the challenges involved in improving literacy and numeracy standards which are fundamental to young people going on to succeed. So I welcome the Schools Bill, which sets the ambition to have 90% of children achieving expected standards in reading, writing and maths, up from 65% in the most recent year that SATs took place. And it's all very well setting targets, but there needs to be a plan to achieve them. And much will rest on the new parent pledge, which means that any child that falls behind in English or maths should receive additional tailored support. And the best schools already do this. And by sharing evidence on what works, more children can now get the support they need, and their parents will be more closely involved in their child's progress. And one of the issues most frequently raised during visits to schools is access to speech and language therapy, as others have referred to. Spoken language underpins literacy development, is key to learning across the curriculum, including for maths. And the Royal College of Speech and Language Therapists highlights evidence from the Education Endowment Foundation that teaching with emphasis on spoken language enables an average of 6 months additional academic progress over the course of the year. So I welcome the reassurance that my honourable friend, the Secretary of State for Education, gave me when the SEND paper was published, that the parent pledge should ensure that children who need help with language and communication are supported. And one of the calls that the Royal College and other language organisations make, which I support, is to ensure that the new national professional qualifications in literacy, special educational needs and early years include a focus on developing and supporting spoken language skills. And as we learn to live with COVID, a specific ask from a recent visit to Churchill Park Academy in Kings Lynn, which serves young people with special needs, is for tests to be made available to such schools. They have particularly vulnerable pupils who are not currently attending school due to concerns about COVID prevalence. I'd be grateful if Education and Health Ministers could carefully consider that request. Now, Madam Deputy Speaker, the focus of this debate of making Britain the best place to grow up and grow old also includes access to healthcare. It all comes as no surprise to ministers that I return to an issue I raised in my maiden speech in the first Queen's Speech debate in this House, and indeed in last year's Queen's Speech and on many other occasions, namely the pressing need for a new hospital for the Queen Elizabeth in Kings Lynn. QEH is now more than a decade beyond its planned 30-year lifespan, and due to the racked concrete planks, it now has 1,500 timber and steel supports holding up the cracking roof. It is the most propped hospital in the country, and that number is likely to increase as further fail-safe work is completed. Due to this concrete cancer, the Trust Risk Register has a red rating for direct risk to life to the safety of patients, visitors and staff due to the potentially catastrophic risk of failure of the roof structure. Last month, some of my constituents once again came to Westminster to talk about the need for QEH to be one of the additional 8 new hospital schemes the government's committed to building. And a major issue they asked me to highlight is just how bad an experience being in a ward surrounded by props holding up the roof is for patients. And staff at the hospital stressed how it makes it harder for them to do the job to provide the care the patients need. And I warmly welcome the funding from the DH for a new endoscopy unit, a new West Norfolk Eye Centre, which opened last week at QEH. But now is the time to make a decision to build a new hospital for the 300,000 people across Norfolk, Lincolnshire and Cambridgeshire that QEH serves. And this isn't about having shiny new buildings for their own sake. It's about better health outcomes in some of the most deprived areas in the country that the government has recognised as priority for levelling up. And by committing to this vitally needed hospital, the inevitable requirement for replacement will become part of a funded programme rather than unplanned demand on the Treasury requiring emergency funding. That is better value for money for taxpayers and will deliver the improvements people in North West Norfolk and beyond deserve. So I hope my right honourable friend, the Health Secretary, has good news for my constituents soon, as they are rightly frustrated at the delay in this decision.
Ahmed Yassin.
Thank you very much, Madam Deputy Speaker. It's an honour to speak in this very important debate. Under this government, living standards have plummeted to 1950s levels and life expectancy is falling. ONS figures show that inequality gap in the least deprived area is growing even wider. Almost 1 in 3 children in Britain live in poverty. Britain is in decline under this Tory government. Despite all of this, the government have the temerity to talk about